Hello and welcome to my channel. Today is Saturday and that means it's time for a new episode of True Crime Tales with Christiana. As always, we have a content warning. It gets graphic. We talk about guns, we talk about shooting, and death. So, without further delay, let's get into it. On the night of February 20th, 2016, a spree shooting took place at an apartment complex, a Kia car dealership, and outside a Cracker Barrel restaurant in Kalamazoo County, Michigan. 6 people were killed and 2 others were injured. Police detained a 45-year-old Uber driver, Jason Brian Dalton, in the shootings. He was subsequently charged with murder, assault, and criminal firearm use 2 days after the shootings. After he was found competent to stand trial, Dalton's lawyers planned a legal insanity defense for their client. Disagreeing with the strategies of his lawyers, Dalton pleaded guilty to all charges in a Michigan court on January 7, 2019. Hours before the shootings, Dalton went to 3 different gun stores with a friend. At one of them, he purchased a black jacket with pockets designed to conceal a handgun. Though the store owner said Dalton was in good spirits during the visit, the friend who accompanied Dalton said that he was a little more quiet than normal during the trip. Dalton was an occasional customer at the same store, but never purchased a firearm there. Shortly after 4 p.m. on February 20th, 2016, Matt Mellon requested an Uber pickup to drive him over to a friend's house. He was picked up at 4:21 by Dalton, who was driving a silver Chevrolet Equinox. During the drive, Dalton received a call, and after finishing, he allegedly started driving crazy. At one point, he entered an oncoming lane of traffic, drove through a median strip, ignored a stop sign, and sideswiped a Ford Taurus, all the while ignoring Mellon's pleas to stop. When Dalton came to a stop at another stop sign, Mellon jumped out and called 911. He gave the dispatcher information about Dalton's Equinox, including his license plate number, and the dispatcher put out a be on the lookout notification on the vehicle. Despite this, he still went on to kill 6 people. So, yeah. There were multiple calls to 911 by others before the following incidents took place, all of which were ignored. They literally called in and told this dude, like, straight up that he was going crazy. And they ignored the calls. 911 ignored the calls. Do you hear what I'm saying? 911 ignored them. That's horrific. As somebody who, like, lives in a not so, druggy neighborhood kind of situation. I mean, I live in a great neighborhood, but there's a lot of drug addicts here, just in the city that I live in. And it's like, so if I call 911, is there a chance that my call will be ignored? Because, like, I have questions and I'm concerned. At 4:34 p.m., Dalton returned home, then called his wife 41 minutes later, asking her for the keys to their Chevy HHR. They agreed to meet at his parents' residence, located approximately 10 miles away. On the way, however, Dalton accepted another pickup request at 5:15 from a woman who wanted him to pick up her boyfriend at a Richland Township apartment complex. The shootings began around 5:42 when a woman was shot a total of 4 times in a parking lot of the same apartment complex. She survived her injuries. According to the woman, she was confronted by a man in a vehicle with a German Shepherd type dog sitting in the back. The driver asked if she was another person by a different name. When she replied that she was not, the man turned his car around and fired repeatedly at her. She survived by playing dead. Approximately 15 rounds were fired. 10 shell casings were recovered at the scene of the first shooting. 5 children, including the woman's daughter, were present at the scene of the shooting, but they escaped unharmed through her efforts. Investigators believe that Dalton's request for an Uber ride at the apartment complex had become botched. The requester texted Dalton moments after the initial request with the correction of the address, which would have led him to another location in the same area. She later attempted to call him to follow up with him on the address correction, but he did not respond. A witness later reported seeing an Equinox driving so aggressively towards the apartment, at one point cutting him off at a southbound curve and risking a head-on collision. He later recognized Dalton on the news as the Equinox's driver. At 6:05, approximately 20 minutes after the first shooting occurred, Dalton called the requester saying that he hadn't responded to her text and that he could not do the ride because something had come up. Now, I don't know about, like, where y'all live, but, like, there's cops everywhere in the state I'm in. And I'm just wondering how, like, you can drive crazy and aggressively for such an extended period of time without being pulled over by a cop of any kind. Like, no speed guns, speedometers, whatever they're called. None of that? No? Okay, cool. Sorry, my phone was going fucking crazy. 1 minute after the shooting. 1 minute after the shooting, Dalton's Equinox was seen driving through a red traffic light at an intersection approximately a mile away. Again, another opportunity for a cop to get involved. Running a red light, illegal. It struck another vehicle and fled the scene. So now we have a hit and run. And the reason I'm laughing is this is not funny. This is very sad, and I feel so much pain for all of the families that were affected by this. But multiple illegal traffic, I don't even know what you would call them, like traffic violations, happened during this span, and there was apparently not a single cop within the entire area to pull this man over or check for his license or anything. Nothing. And in my town, you go 5 minutes over the speed limit or 5 miles over the speed limit, and they're ready to arrest you on spot. At around the same time, a neighbor found the injured woman, who was soon treated by responding emergency personnel. Later on, Dalton allegedly met with his wife and children at his parents' home in Cornstalk Township. He explained to his wife that the Equinox had been sideswiped by a disgruntled taxi driver in a Chevy Impala, who fired a gunshot at him due to rage at having his business taken away by Uber. He then assured her that he called Uber and they were handling the incident. He also provided his wife with a 9mm Taurus handgun, telling her it was not safe to be at the house without it. In addition, he instructed her not to go to work and not to take children to school. Dalton then attempted to leave in a Hummer H3, but it would not start, so he took the black Chevy HHR that his wife had been driving. As he left, he allegedly told his wife that he could not tell her what was going on, but that it would be on the news. It definitely wasn't wrong about that one. After leaving, Dalton withdrew money from an automated teller machine at 6:44. Then, after driving around for 35 minutes, he allegedly returned to his house and switched handguns. He left again at 7:37 and continued accepting Uber requests, which he carried out without incident. None of the passengers he took noticed anything unusual or alarming about him. Later that night at 8:26, Dalton called his wife and told her not to call her parents. At 10:01, the shooter arrived at a Kia dealership in Kalamazoo. According to a witness, after parking his car, the shooter approached her boyfriend and his father at 10:05 and asked them what they were looking at. Before they could respond, he fired approximately 18 rounds, fatally striking both males. One was struck by 9 bullets, the other was struck by 7. Other witnesses in a Burger King parking lot across the street recorded the shooter fleeing, and one called 911 a minute after the shots were fired. About 10 minutes later, a third shooting occurred outside a Cracker Barrel restaurant in Texas Township, located about 5 miles from the Kia dealership. 4 people were seated inside 2 vehicles were killed, and 1 other person wounded. The shooter reportedly approached one victim inside a white van, asked her a question, and then shot her before shooting into the adjacent vehicle, which contained the other victims. This shooting took about 1 minute before the gunman fled. He was alleged to have returned home and reloaded his gun there. So, he had not intended to stop with this shooting. He was ready to go out again and kill more people. And it seems like that was the idea. It was just about body count. It wasn't really anything that started it. I mean, you know, we've got the psychotic excuse that they all use, but there really wasn't like any rhyme or reason. It just kind of happened. Like, it was just like, poof. And that's really sad that a bunch of innocent people lost their lives because this man's crazy, you know. And I always say that. I say that about every one of the cases that I do, because I do think it is so fucking sad. But yeah. Area officers responding to the scene of the Kia dealership shooting heard reports of the gunfire at Cracker Barrel, then realized there might be a mobile active shooter. Finally, we caught on. Interviewing witnesses, police learned that the gunman was driving a dark-colored Chevy HHR. Using newly installed security footage from the Kia dealership, police put out a description of the gunman over the radio. The Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety issued a statement to the public on its Facebook page, warning residents to be on the lookout for the shooter and his vehicle. In addition, multiple reports of gunfire at several locations, including the Western Michigan University campus, were ultimately determined to be false. As police continued the manhunt, Dalton reportedly continued to accept Uber fares. At 12:04 a.m. on February 21st, he picked up 3 people and dropped them off at a dormitory on the WMU campus. The passengers later recalled that their driver wasn't overly friendly, but did nothing to alarm them. Later at 12:12, Dalton picked up 4 people and drove them to their hotel. During the ride, one passenger who'd been hearing reports of the shooting spree jokingly asked Dalton, "Are you the shooter?" Dalton simply replied, "No." Yes. A few minutes later, he picked up another 3 people, and just like the previous ride, a passenger asked if he was the shooter, which Dalton vehemently denied. Honestly, I mean, and I understand why they did it, but like, if you get an Uber ride or Lyft, I'm not a big fan of these things because I do so much in the true crime world and I research so much true crime that like I have no valid reason to feel safe because I know that I don't know this person and they could be literally anybody. They could be the next Ted Bundy for all I know. But honestly, if you're gonna like, it's like when, you know, people get arrested for like shooting their families or whatever. It's not like they're gonna be like, yeah, I did it. Unless they're truly psychotic and they have no remorse, they're not going to come out and be like, hey, yeah, I did it. Asking is not going to get you anywhere. At that point, though, I feel like if you are aware of what's going on, like, maybe not take an Uber at this point. That's me, though, and that's how I would feel about it. Like, if I saw on the news that one Uber driver was going around shooting a bunch of people, or a taxi cab, if you don't know that it's Uber, I wouldn't be getting into either of those. I wouldn't be getting into any car ride service because, like, you don't know who really is cuckoo bananas and who isn't. But that's my opinion. Some people may not feel that way. At 12:36, the police sergeant with the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office observed Dalton dropping off the 3 passengers, followed him, and requested backup. He was joined by a KDPS officer, and the 2 conducted a traffic stop at 12:40. Now we're conducting a traffic stop. Not when he was running red lights and a hit and run and speeding and driving erratically. No. We didn't stop him then. When additional officers arrived, the first 2 pulled Dalton out of his vehicle and arrested him. At the time of his arrest, Dalton was wearing the jacket he purchased from the gun store, along with a bulletproof vest. He told police that he had bought the vest for his son, who was an explorer with the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office. They found a handgun at the back of his waistband. Police believe that none of the victims at the separate scenes were connected. At least 30 rounds were said to have been fired during the shootings. Jason Dalton was identified by police as the suspect in the shootings. Police detained Dalton on February 21st at around 12:40 a.m. without incident after pulling over his vehicle, a black Chevy HHR that matched the description of the getaway vehicle in the shootings. After his arrest, Dalton confessed to committing the shootings. However, he blamed his actions on his Uber mobile app, claiming that its symbol resembled that of the Order of the Eastern Star, and that it took over his body during the events after he pressed the button of a new app resembling the devil when it abruptly popped up. He later said that he was no longer experiencing these. Police indicated that he had no known criminal history or mental health record. Dalton was raised in Greenfield, Indiana, and went to middle and high school in nearby Charlottesville. He attended Cornstalk High School in Kalamazoo, graduating in 1989. He then attended Kalamazoo Valley Community College and graduated in December of 1992 with an associate degree in law enforcement, though he did not enroll in the school's police academy program. Dalton married wife Carol in 1995, and the couple had children together, ages 10 and 15 at the time of his killing spree. Carol Dalton started divorce proceedings the week after the killings. The family was living in nearby Cooper Township. Dalton was generally described as a nice guy and a good family man, though it was reported that he had been acting depressed in the days before the shootings occurred. Later, neighbors said Dalton had been acting paranoid right before the shootings. According to an old friend, Dalton had tried to seek a job as a police officer in Michigan or in nearby states, but he was unable to and had no interest in moving far away to find a police job. Instead, he studied auto body work at Wyotech in Laramie, Wyoming, and found work at a BMW office in New Jersey at one point. This allowed him to get jobs as a mechanic and then an insurance adjuster. Dalton worked as a driver for Uber during the 2 weeks preceding the killing spree and purportedly took fares between shooting incidents. An Uber representative stated that Dalton had passed company background checks. A former co-worker of Dalton's at the insurance company recalled seeing Dalton yell at a customer over the phone, slam the phone down, and pace around the desk angrily afterwards. Dalton had previously been counseled about his professionalism towards customers, and in an interview, another customer reported an encounter with Dalton in which he called him back over to re-examine a vehicle for damage Dalton missed in his appraisal. He described Dalton as unprofessional and prone to anger. In the week following the shootings, Dalton was questioned by deputies with the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office who were investigating a series of shootings along Interstate 94 and Interstate 69. Although Dalton traveled in the area where the shootings occurred and had been the insurance adjuster for a damaged sheriff patrol vehicle, he was cleared of any involvement. A 9mm Walther P99 semi-automatic handgun with an extended magazine was recovered from inside Dalton's car. Now, I'm not sure about this, but I thought extended magazines were illegal. I don't know if that's the case, so if you do know and you can correct me, that's fine. But I truly thought those were illegal, and I kind of forgot to search that up before I did this, so sorry about that. But if you know, let me know, because I would love to have that information. Police believe that the Walther P99 was used during the last two shootings, while a 9mm Glock 19 semi-automatic handgun was used in the first shooting. Dalton reportedly switched guns after the Glock malfunctioned while firing. Among other items, another 15 firearms, 11 long guns, and 4 handguns were recovered from his home. Dalton purchased the Glock from an Oshatimo Township gun store on June 12, 2015. Sorry if I mispronounced that. However, he then purchased the Walther from the same store later that year on August 22nd. However, he did not have a license to carry a concealed weapon. The Glock was among the 4 handguns recovered from Dalton's home. The first people killed were Tyler D. Smith, 17, and his 53-year-old father, Richard, who were both killed at the Kia dealership. 4 women, Mary Jo Nye, 60, Mary Lou Nye, 62, Dorothy Brown, 74, and Barbara Hawthorne were killed at the Cracker Barrel. All 4 women were friends, and Mary Jo and Mary Lou were sister-in-laws. Abigail Kopp, 14, suffered several injuries at Cracker Barrel, including a gunshot wound to the head. At the time of her shooting, she was accompanying victim Barbara Hawthorne, a close friend whom she called her grandmother. She was initially reported dead, but later confirmed to have survived. As of February 23rd, she remained on a ventilator and in critical condition, though she was breathing on her own by February 28th and opened her eyes on March 3rd. Kopp was discharged from Bronson Methodist Hospital on March 8th and transferred to the Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation Hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Her skull was damaged during the Cracker Barrel shooting, and she underwent surgery at Bronson to replace the missing portion of her skull. She had to undergo surgery again due to an infection induced by her previous surgery. Kopp was discharged on July 26th and allowed to return home, but had to undergo surgery yet again on August 17th due to a related skin infection. The surgery was successfully completed 2 days later. Tiana Carruthers, 25, was the first victim to be shot in the shootings, being shot 4 times in the left arm, leg, and back, but survived. Her shooting occurred in the parking lot of an apartment in Richard Township. Her arm had to be surgically reconstructed as a result of the shooting. In August 2016, she underwent 2 further surgeries on her legs due to a medical setback. On February 22, 2016, Dalton was arraigned on 16 charges, including 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of assault with intent to commit murder, and 8 counts of using a firearm during the commission. He was to reappear in court on March 10th for a preliminary examination hearing. On March 3rd, he was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation to determine his competence to stand trial. He reappeared in court on April 22nd, where it was ruled by the Michigan Center for Forensic Psychiatry that he was found competent to stand trial. Eusebio Solis, again, so sorry if I mispronounced that, a former Calhoun County chief, assistant prosecutor, and a former Calhoun County commissioner was appointed to represent Dalton in court. Dalton appeared on May 20th for a preliminary hearing to determine if there was enough evidence to try him on the charges. During the hearing, Dalton made a verbal outburst and interrupted Tiana Carruthers, the first victim attacked in shootings, while she was testifying. He reportedly made somewhat indecipherable statements and caused Carruthers to cry, forcing a recess to be called. Dalton was restrained and removed from the courtroom by sheriff's deputies. The hearing resumed later in the day, with Dalton participating via video hookup from jail. On June 6th, following a pretrial conference, Dalton's attorneys announced that their plans to present a legal insanity defense for their client. He underwent a psychiatric evaluation conducted by the Michigan Center for Forensic Psychiatry in Saline, a process that was carried out over the next 60 days. His trial was tentatively expected to start in late September or early October. A status conference was tentatively set for August 15th. On August 12th, the conference was postponed to September 30th, with the Kalamazoo County Sheriff Chief Assistant Prosecutor saying that the evaluation had not been finished yet. On that day, the conference was delayed again because Dalton's psychological report was not yet finished. On June 13, 2017, a trial date was set. The trial date was later delayed. Jury selection was later scheduled to start January 3rd, 2019, with opening statements being scheduled to start January 7th. On January 7th, 2019, Dalton pleaded guilty to all counts against him. On February 5th, Dalton was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dalton is currently imprisoned in the Oaks Correctional Facility. Joe Sullivan, Uber's chief security officer, released a statement reading, "We are horrified and heartbroken at the senseless violence in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Our hearts and prayers are with the families of the victims of this devastating crime and those recovering from injuries. We have reached out to the police to help with their investigation in any way that we can. Calls were made for Uber to improve its background check system. In response to the shootings, President Barack Obama praised law enforcement agencies and pledged federal support for the ongoing investigation." That is the story of the Kalamazoo shootings. It was very sad, and as always, we need to take a moment of silence for all of the victims that were involved. With that being said, that is the end of today's segment. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Make good choices and be cautiously kind to others. Have a great day. Bye.